meaningful access for in-person instruction even over a year after the pandemic was declared, and I think that's going to have disastrous consequences. But even in the places where they claim, you have in-person school, and Richard can tell you, I mean, some of these places, you got a third or 25% of the parents that don't have meaningful access. So Florida is one of only a handful of states where we have the ability to do it. And when we were working this summer with Richard, we knew it was important. We obviously believed the data was very convincing that the schools needed to be in person and you needed to have that option for parents, and we knew the vast majority of parents would want that. But we also had folks up and down the state, including Superintendent Mike Grego here. Almost every superintendent wanted to get back. We had most of the teachers really wanted to get back. I mean, we're joined by a couple, but I have Joyce Vertelli. She was one of our events last summer talking about how the virtual doesn't work when you have some of the special education and some of the students with unique abilities. They needed to get her kids back. And she was very passionate, and a lot of teachers were passionate about that. And I just think it's important to point that out because in some of these other parts of the country, you have these people involved with the schools. They don't want to be in. They're taking vacations. They're doing all that. They don't want to do it. And I think that there's been a lot of folks throughout the American public that's looked at that, and I think they've been very frustrated and disappointed. But I don't think that's fair to apply that to Florida, because from the very beginning last summer, we had so many people who work in our school districts and our charter and private and the whole education. They wanted to get back. And I know that at the time there was just a lot of stuff going on. It wasn't necessarily the easiest thing because of, some people were fearful. You had this, you had that. But we had people every step of the way that wanted to put the kids first. Mike Grego is certainly one of those, and we have really not looked back. So I just want to thank them for their hard work throughout this school year. I think it's been a big success. Obviously, we have some more to go. And I remember when Palm Harbor started. I was in high school. It was like they only had grades 9 and 10 when you first started, but it was like a big deal. I mean, it was like this great school. And I was kidding the principal here, Teresa Patterson. You did have one year where you were a B school. It's like every other year was an A, but there was the one year where you were the B. But it was a big deal, so it's just interesting for me to now come back, because I remember when they broke ground on it. I remember when they had their first classes. But if you look at all the things that have happened, any of these inflection points over the last year, it's a lot of really, really significant things. I mean, for example, we were one of the first states to work to protect nursing home residents, in contrast to what some of these other states did, where like New York, where they were sending them back. And so that was insignificant. It saved a lot of lives. We obviously believed in lifting people up, getting people back to work, letting people do their best to provide for their families. Businesses open, people working. Our unemployment rate is 4.7. Nationally, it's 6.2. And I have some of my biggest industries locked down by the CDC, like the cruise industry. We want that open. It's not even open because of the federal government. But that was important to do. The vaccinations, we're going to hit 3.5 million seniors that have gotten shots. We put seniors first, and I think that was the right decision, and I think you're going to see that as we go on be vindicated even more. But I'd say the thing that's going to have the most long-term impact on our societies, on our communities, on our states, on our cities, on our counties, on our country is, did we get the kids back in school this school year or not? And if you got them back in school, I think the positive effects of that are going to be dramatic, and the negative effects that you're avoiding are going to be huge. The places that have locked kids out of school for a year now, and likely for the rest of this school year at this point, what, they're going to send them back for 6 or 7 more weeks? I don't think so. So it's going to be at least a year and a half. I think that's going to be the most consequential decision that any of these states or localities made. And I think the negative effects of that are not even calculable at this point, but they are going to drag on for months and years, and it's going to affect millions of people's lives across this country. And so I think that all the hard work that went into getting the school year going, to getting our kids back, all the things that the teachers did, the principals, I was telling Mike and the teachers before, you may never be able to make as significant of an impact than you did this year. Because had we not done this, you could be the best, have the best school in the world. It's really hard to unring the bell of having kids out of school for a year and a half. and I can't thank them enough. So we're going to have a pretty good announcement here in a sec. But before we do that, we have some teachers here. And basically, they're going to come up and talk about some of the stuff that they have done. So first, I want to bring up Sarah Painter. So Sarah, just talk about kind of what you've done. And I know you've been recognized for your good work. And just talk about how the school year's gone.
Hi, I'm Sarah Painter, Teacher of the Year for Pinellas County, and I teach 5th grade at Eisenhower Elementary. I'm a simultaneous teacher, which means I do have some on the computer and I have some face-to-face. When we first started this journey in August, we had a lot of frustrations. Kids would end up off the call, technology wouldn't work, and I'd find myself groaning. Once my students started coming back to the room slowly, they heard me doing that, and they said, have you been doing that this whole time? And I was like, oh yeah, I have. Like, well, let's find joy instead. So we came up with this phrase, and so every time a call would drop or we'd have a frustration, in unison the class would say, find joy. So that became our mantra this year. And find joy is not about ignoring the negatives, because they're there, but it's powering through and asking ourselves, now what? So not to live there. Sure, we have to gripe, we have to complain, that's natural, but we can't live there because that's toxic. So we ask ourselves, now what? And we push through. I'm a runner. I often use some running analogies in my classroom. So if I'm running and my shoe becomes untied and I have to stop and tie it, I'll come back to school the next day and I'll say, you know, sometimes in life our plans get interrupted, but we do what we need to do, we address the issue, and we move on. And then I came up with the perfect analogy. I was tying my shoes, ready for a run, and it started pouring. And my goal was to get that run done no matter what. So I put my shoes on, I put my clothes on, and I ran. Was the puddle dirty? Yes. Was it messy? Yes. Did I enjoy it? Not so much. But if I set out to run, I'm going to run. And I think as teachers, we need to continue the race that we signed up for. We signed up to do this. We cannot control the weather. We can't control our circumstances, but we can continue to push through, find joy, and ask now what. My last comments that I want to make is we're coming into testing season. We have assessments coming up. They are necessary. No runner enters a race, crosses the finish line, and doesn't ask how they did. So this year, the assessments are so important because we need to know how we're doing, and we need to use that to figure out our now what for next year. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Joy Vitrelli. I teach at Paul V. Stevens, which is an exceptional student center here in Pinellas County. It's a great school where some of our most disabled students attend school. My daughter is a graduate from there. And I met with Governor DeSantis and the rest of the administration from the school district and the superintendent during the summer to talk about the value of having our students be in-person learning. It was extremely difficult to have kids who have a hard time sitting or feeding themselves or looking or paying attention to try to use technology meaningfully for learning. It did not work for us. And I'm so very grateful to the governor, to you, to everyone who pushed to get our kids back in school, because it has been a remarkable experience for me. We have a mantra in my class, which is mask up. And if I had $1 for every time I've said that this year, I would be retired. But some of the things that we learned from this, myself, my colleagues who have done a great job, everybody at our school has, but the students too, is that this was really a teachable moment for us in ways that I never imagined. We've had to especially be mindful of making sure that the students were placed so that there was 6 feet between them. And it's much easier for you all to stay in your seats there than it is for students who are autistic or don't understand the need. But they have learned how to do it. So for my students who have to pace the floor because they might have some behavioral anxiety, I have an area where they know they can only walk on the tile because I measured it out to see. And they have learned that they have now some control over an environment that was frightening for them. And I think as educators and adults, we have a civic responsibility, a professional responsibility, a personal responsibility to communicate to the children in our lives that there might be frightening things that are going on in our world, but with knowledge, we can gain wisdom and experience. And we can teach them that those things that are frightening can be addressed, that they can be safe at school, that they can be safe on their school bus, and that their parents and their caregivers have that security of knowing that their children are at the place that they need to be educated in the best possible way. And again, I'm very grateful that we're back at school, and my kids have done a great job. They each have their own little pointer to go to the smart board and point with, so then I didn't have to worry about spreading germs. I mean, there were so many things that we learned. They've improved their eating skills because they're not all eating in the cafeteria, and we have all these eyes on them all the time when they're eating. So there were so many things that we did not even think of that were a positive from this whole experience. And the best thing is that we're back in school where we need to be. Thank you.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Webb, and I'm a teacher here at Palm Harbor University High School. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about my teaching experiences during the pandemic. Navigating simultaneous teaching has been a challenging feat. I've had to re-examine how to effectively teach science and career technical courses in which collaborative and hands-on learning are critical, with students who are both online and at home and socially distanced during class. I've had to overcome these challenges in order for my students to have a high quality and rigorous education that I'm passionate about and that they deserve. Continuously being ready to adapt to changes in has been a necessity. Curriculums have been modified based on mandated protocols, but I've had great success in strategically researching and implementing technology-based learning resources. For example, using Flipgrid, students have been able to demonstrate mastery of technical skills and record short project presentations. Creative and innovative thinking have been essential in enhancing my lessons. My classes this year are frequently held outside in our courtyard where collaborative learning and skills practice can be maximized in a safe, effective, and fun manner. I dissected a fetal pig in a series of live online lessons over the course of a week last spring at the patio at my house with my niece as the camera person. Another challenge that was overcome was employing strategic measures to ensure that my personal training students would be able to observe certified professionals at clinical sites. Since traditional fitness facilities aren't a site option this year, I was able to facilitate student engagement with certified professionals at outdoor boot camp facilities at clinical sites there. So even though the pandemic has been challenging, the students have responded. The results of our certification testing have proven this, despite the fact that even the testing formats have changed. Last spring, 71% of our biomedical science students passed their biotechnician assistant certification exam, which is in line with previous years. Just a few weeks ago, 100% of our 58 nursing assisting students passed their certification exam. Perseverance is key, and it takes planning, flexibility, creativity, and innovative thinking to foster a positive learning environment that can effectively reach all learners. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks. We really appreciate your hard work, and I know this is, a snippet here in Pinellas County, but we've seen folks work really hard all throughout the state, and we really we really appreciate it. And as a token of the appreciation, today I'm proposing and announcing my request to the legislature to dedicate another $216 million from the third round of the ESSER funds so that we could do $1,000 bonuses for public school principals and classroom teachers for grades pre-K through 12. This proposal will provide a bonus to more than 3,600 principals and nearly 180,000 full-time classroom teachers. So similar to my proposal for a bonus for first responders, our Florida teachers and school principals have put student success first throughout the course of the coronavirus pandemic. And so we're asking the legislature, since they're in session, we have these ESSER funds from the federal government. Now, the first responders, we asked for that out of the stimulus money. Here we're at the ESSER, and we'd like that to be appropriated during the session so that we can get these checks out as soon as possible. And so having the doors open has been a huge, huge success. It's been very important to so many families. We have people who move from these other states just because we have schools open. It's incredible, the frustration in some of these other places. And so it's been a huge, huge thing. And this is in addition to my budget, which we asked for $50 million additional to continue raising the average minimum salary in addition to the $500 million that we already have in there. And so that is something we're still going to fight for, of course. So this is in addition to that, not in lieu of that. So we think it's an exciting proposal. We think that the legislature will look favorably upon this, and we think it's something that's very appropriate given the great work that's been done throughout the state of Florida during this school year. And so with that, we'll invite up Commissioner Corcoran, and then we'll have Mike Grego say a few things. And the principal.
Thank you. It's great to be back in Pinellas County. It's kind of where we all started at the end of the summer, and great praise and thank you to the governor for saying we're opening up schools, and we're going to give that option of face-to-face, and we're going to ensure that our children get a year's worth of learning. And it's been a remarkable year, and I think you hear the teachers have said just fantastic comments from, out of this adversity, and our children have learned a level of perseverance. And adversity has been quoted as saying it's the doorway to greatness. And so now these are silver linings, as you talked about, that you'd think, hey, this is just a chaotic, awful year, and yet you have all these silver linings, and you have leadership from the top that says, we're going to put the students first. And I think what's fantastic, pre-pandemic, even knowing what the word COVID was, we had the governor basically launch the Year of the Teacher. We're going to elevate and celebrate teachers. The largest single pay increase in the history of the state was put forward. It was passed. Then the pandemic hits, and you have this tremendous economic downturn, and everyone's thinking, not only is that going to not survive the budget process, but now we're going to have to dig in and cut the entire K-12 education budget. This governor has been a stalwart for the value and the purpose of an education and what it does to create a great society and great citizens within that society. Not one single dollar was cut from the teacher compensation. Not one single dollar was cut from the K-12 budget. In fact, this year, increased the base student allocation, increased the teacher compensation, and now to announce another $1,000 bonus for our teachers. It's just a remarkable year, and it's so well-deserved. One of the silver linings I like to think is we all knew and we all valued teachers, but when this hit, there isn't a parent alive. I have 6 children. Trust me, I've always valued teachers, nowhere near as much as when this hit, and you realize how inadequate you are in trying to get them to follow the coursework or stay up with it or motivate them, but that's what our teachers do every single day. And so one of the great silver linings is our teachers have now worldwide, not just in the state, not just in this country, been elevated and celebrated and recognized for the heroic work they have done. And if you look at the state of Florida, the governor will tell you, when he had schools open up, guess what happens? Parents can go back to work. Business can start making money again. The economy can start turning around. It's literally was the impetus or the backbone what happened down here in Pinellas when we had that announcement. And so for what the teachers have done, they, in this time of uncertainty, were the certainty for our children. The one constant, the one thing they would get dropped off, they would go into a classroom, they'd see that familiar face, they'd be with their peers. That was the certainty. And then when you think about a state that has 72% of its kids dependent on their meal by going to school, and yet you have this environment that was opened up. We were the fastest to open up. We have been open the longest, and we have more students in face-to-face instruction than any other state in the union. You could probably cobble a bunch of them together, and they can't even equal what Florida's done. But so it's just a great momentous occasion. I sit here, and whenever I'm in libraries, I just love when you guys have quotes all over the wall. But the one really just staring me right was from a student, Robin Williams, from the class of 15. It says, no matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world. And what happened with teachers has changed the world. What they have put into words and put into ideas and put into action has changed the world. And I do want to also, I know the governor's going to introduce them, but you guys have maybe the LeBron James of superintendents. And there's a lot of great ones out there. All 67 are superintendents. To what the governor said, they all wanted to open up. Our teachers all wanted to be back in the classroom. I think we had 95% of our teachers back in the classroom. I mean, just an astounding accomplishment, a heroic effort. But your superintendent, I will tell you, and he won't tell you, so I'm going to give him credit, but he's on speed dial at our office. The entire department has him on speed dial. There's rarely a day that goes by that we don't call up Mike Grego and say, this is what we're thinking, this is what where we're headed, you know, give us your input. And his input is second to none. And so it's also great to be here with Superintendent Grego and all these great teachers and reminisce where we were. I remember being on the traveling with the governor one time, and it was back in August when, as the governor said, we had people protesting us. We had people putting mock graves in front of our buildings. And I remember talking to the governor, and the concept the governor was saying was, today is August, but February or March will come. And when that comes, they will see we are right. Our teachers are right. Our superintendents are right. And we're going to do what's best by children, and we did. And so it's so great to see this additional compensation for our great heroes in the classroom and our principals. Thank you.
Mike?
Well, thank you for those kind words, Commissioner. And right back at you in terms of the department being so receptive of the superintendents. We're in a school, so. Yeah. I too want to add my thanks, Governor DeSantis, for being here and choosing Pinellas County to make this historic announcement, and also choosing Palm Harbor University High School, a fine high school, representative of all of our high schools in Pinellas County. Well, we're grateful for your leadership. As was already mentioned, we in Pinellas County and in the state of Florida were fully operationalized in August, and I want to say thank you once again on behalf of all the superintendents for holding the districts financially harmless, providing innovative teaching methods, Commissioner, and to assist students to learn remotely, and provided us the resources to open up safely so that we could effectively engage. I know it's nice that we're speaking in the end of March about how smooth things went, but a lot of the decisions from the governor and the commissioner and the Department of Education, you have a Department of Education that's one of the finest, if not the finest in the nation also, and I'm not just saying that. We in Pinellas County have the vast majority of our schools, 85 to 95% in-person learning face-to-face, with many of them over 90% learning face-to-face. We're excited about the plans of the future. We're excited about this robust summer program that we're going to be holding in June and July. Because as the governor mentioned, this is not going to go away in terms of the potential learning loss, but rather we need to care for our students of all grade levels, not only this summer, but next year and next summer, and we're going to use these dollars very wisely. So it's been a journey, and you've heard that from the teachers, but as the governor pointed out, the teachers have been in the center of this journey. And every single day trying to figure it out, how to make it work, and refusing, and this has been our mantra, we're going to refuse to allow this year to be anything less for our students. We're going to make this year as powerful as we can. Our students deserve it. But at the center, the teachers worked to teach online, in person, maybe simultaneous. They worked every single day. So today we may be announcing, and certainly we are very grateful, but I don't want us to forget about the day-to-day support and the responsiveness. And so, you know, not only as superintendent of Pinellas County, but also as the serving president of the Superintendents Association, we say without reservation, the partnership with the department has been second to none. And never before have we had such collaboration with the Department of Education. In tough times, it's amazing of how people come together, and I hope it always stays that way. So thank you, Richard, for your leadership. I'm excited to introduce Teresa Patterson, who is the principal of this school, and ironically, the principal of just a few weeks. So Dr. Gonzalez, who is there right in front of me, if you wave your hand, she has been the principal of this school for 11 years, and so all of those A's are under her leadership, and she was recently promoted as an area superintendent. I also want to say, Governor and Commissioner, I have 4 board members. They're tremendous board members right in front of me, so they're my bosses. So they're standing, Caprice Edmonds and Nicole Carr and Lisa Kane and Eileen Long. Thank you for being here and supporting us through this journey, and all the board members. Thank you so much. So without further ado, let me introduce the fine new principal, but baptism by fire. I called her and I said, the governor wants to come and visit your school. So Teresa?
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. And I do have to tip my hat to Kristen Gonzalez. Dr. Gonzalez really has led this school through what has been a very unique time period. I'm going to put it that way. Governor, as principal, I can't thank you enough for your work to support teachers and schools. And I appreciate the steps that you, along with Commissioner Cochran, have taken to make sure that this year has been full and meaningful for our students. Yes, there certainly were challenges all over the district, but I can tell you this, that at Palm Harbor University High School and across the district, there was no such thing as a pause button. No pause. It was innovate and persevere and find new ways. And I know that our way of work has changed for the better because of all that we've learned. When I look at this school in the short time I've been here, I think it's a perfect example of what I'm seeing throughout the district because of the leadership in place from our superintendent and our assistant superintendent all the way down to the teachers in the classroom. Teachers lead as well. And I see a school that offers pathways to preparing students for career and college after graduation that are both relevant and rigorous. And that was true before the pandemic. Saved by the bell, right? And that was true before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and after. There will always be relevant and rigorous pathways to prepare our students here at Palm Harbor High School and throughout the district. I see our academies of distinction. I'm amazed. Our IB program last year, after transitioning to the digital landscape, still had a 96% pass rate for test takers. Unbelievable. Our graduation rate as a school was 99%. After not returning from spring break. Congratulations, and thank you for your leadership. This year, we had 8 national merit finalists, not semifinalists, finalists. And that didn't help with continuing education through what we went through in 2020 and now and beyond. I'm just so honored and humbled to see what these teachers have done collectively to lead their students across the finish line. I'm grateful to have our visitors on campus, and thank you again for your support of teachers, Governor DeSantis.
Okay. You know, Richard had mentioned we did the teacher compensation increase last year, but if people, so we rolled it out, we campaigned for it, we got it through the legislature, but the budget was passed, probably the second week of March, which was the week before when everything started stopping, 15 days to slow the spread. Here we are a year later, but nevertheless, so that was, things changed very quickly. So they passed the budget, which really reflected the health of the state at the time. We didn't necessarily know, we knew that the pandemic was an issue, but we didn't necessarily appreciate, even by that first few weeks of March, the extent to which the revenues would be impacted and everything. So we did it. Now our fiscal year doesn't start till July 1st. I told them, hold the budget. Let's just see where we're at, because I have to make decisions, right? And so I think everyone thought that the teacher stuff was going to go just because this was a new benefit, and they said, no, everyone would understand that because we lost a lot of revenue in March, April, May in particular, and so we did, and we looked at what we had to do. We did veto $1 billion out of the budget, but we were able to keep the teacher compensation thing going, which was huge, $500 million of an additional. But then people were saying, well, yeah, you did that, and we withheld some other money from our agency. So we certainly were fine last fiscal year. But then this year, they're like, oh, well, there's going to be, all kinds of problems, and, K-12, they're going to have to cut K-12 and all this stuff. And now what do you see happening? You see huge revenue over and above what the projections were. So they did projections in November, which was much higher than it was last spring in terms of because the economy was functioning. Even with those increased projections, December, January, February, we're almost $900 million above those higher projections in terms of what's coming in. March, we think it's going to be, it'll definitely be $200 million, maybe over $250. So you're looking at really billions of dollars because we have people being able to work, businesses, and all that other stuff. And so the result is it was the right thing to do to protect the teacher compensation when I signed this current year's budget. But then I also said very early, we're not cutting K-12. That's not on the table. People say, oh, you're going to have to do. It's not on the table. We did our budget. People are saying, oh, he's going to have to cut all this. I was like, no, I'm not. I was like, we've managed it right. And sure enough, Now the Senate is pretty much where we are. I mean, we may need to move them a little, but I mean, their budget's pretty, I mean, the top line's similar. You know, the House is, you know, move them a little bit too, but like, we're all in the same ballpark here. And I think we understand that, that we need to continue honoring our commitments. So I'm happy that we're in that situation. And now people are starting to understand that there's going to be another revision here shortly, which is going to revise it up. And when I did my budget, we knew that there was going to be a lot more revenue January through the end of June, and we didn't even include it in my budget. We still had the $6.6 billion total reserves, and we didn't even include that extra billion, billion and a half, maybe even more. So you have that. You know, we've approached it the right way. It's a combination of making prudent decisions with the budget, but also having the economy functioning. And now with having some of the federal money, it gives us an opportunity to do some even more, do things even more. And so I think it's going to end up being a real successful legislative session. I think education, K-12, I think is going to come out very strong. And don't forget, this is out of the state's portion of ESSER. The locals are also getting money. So there's nothing preventing them from doing even more. And we would obviously encourage them to think very carefully about that. So all in all, it's a good day. It's a day to say thank you. It's a day to appreciate all the great people in Florida who've worked to give kids an education this year. But it's also a time to say we need a proposal to be able to make that thanks tangible. And I think this is a great first step. With that, I'll take a few questions.
Governor, will the state continue funding online learning next year, or is the goal to really get everyone back in the classroom?
Well, I can let Richard, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, the goal is to get everyone back in the classroom.
So will funding, do you think, be taken away from online, or is that still just be?
No, we've always, even pre-pandemic, we always funded online. So we would just go back to the traditional funding levels for face-to-face and online.
Governor and Commissioner, has there been any more discussion about consequences if the FSA test results are disappointing this year?
Yeah, so you want to talk about what we're...
Yeah, we
Once
work
you
very...
Yep.
I'm sorry. We work very, very closely with the superintendents. We've been going through it. I think our Teacher of the Year said it beautifully and accurately. We need to measure. Those measurements give us the diagnostic wisdom to go out there and wrap everything around that child and get him exactly what he needs to learning as the superintendent said, whether it's an enhanced summer program, an enhanced rising VPK kids that we do over the summer, wraparound services before and after school. We need that measurement. What we do with that measurement after we do it, we've always said that from the beginning of the pandemic, we've said we're going to lead with compassion and grace. And so we're going to take care of our students and make sure that whatever comes out in the next week or two, it's going to be something that's compassionate, that exhibits grace, and puts the students' interest and the district's interest at heart.
But when you say the next week or so, will a decision be made before the students take the test, or will you wait to see what are the tests?
It's forthcoming.
Imminent, yeah. Stay tuned. Yep. One more? Anybody?
When do you plan on taking the vaccine? I have to get it already.
So I became eligible on Monday. I haven't had it yet, but I am planning on doing it this week. I'm not sure we're going to do it on camera. I mean, we'll see. I mean, if you guys want a gun show, maybe we could do it, but probably better off not. And so we're looking forward to do it. And then also we got the updated allocations for next week. So we kind of in the middle of the week, the feds will tell us, hey, what are you looking at? And then so these will be the vaccines that'll hit probably Monday or Tuesday of next week. And we got our first big tranche of Johnson & Johnson. So we got about 160,000 to start. Then it went down 25, 50 some thousand, and we knew that it was gonna do that. Now we're gonna get over 300,000 J&J that's gonna come Monday, Tuesday, and so that will then be able to be out. For whatever reason, there's a reduction in Pfizer from where we are, but we're getting an increase in Moderna. So between J&J increase, Moderna increase, even deducting the Pfizer, it's a pretty significant increase. And so and then the pharmacies, we're adding more pharmacies too. We've had the big ones, CVS, Publix, Walgreens, Walmart, some of those. We now have some of the smaller pharmacies. Honestly, some of these I had not even heard of, to be honest. But so they're now going to be a part of the federal pharmacy program. So we're getting it further there as well. I think we're going to be able to announce additional expansions of CVS locations. We're working on that. Walgreens is now over 600 locations. Publix is over 600. Walmart is over 200, that and Sam's Club, and then now CVS. They have over 1,000 locations throughout Florida. So the more we could do there, every single CVS can do 100 or 200, depending on how it's arranged, every single day. So that's a really big force multiplier. But what's going to happen is, now that everyone's going to be eligible on Monday, there'll probably be a little bit of a rush. It will probably start to be pretty soft as we get into the middle of April. So we're going to keep getting more vaccine, and just basically making it available is probably not going to be enough to get it all utilized. And so I think the message for folks is that, certainly the vulnerable folks, we've been very stressing this, but this is something that's available, it's safe. I think it's been very effective, and we haven't seen everything yet nationwide. I think we're seeing it with nursing homes, with the decline that we've seen there, and I think over the next couple weeks, you're going to see an even bigger decline with the larger elderly population. The fact is, once you get both of those shots, give it a couple weeks, you really are in a situation where, I don't know, I've asked the health to look. I don't know that we've had very many people who have had a shot get admitted to a hospital. There may have been some, but not to the extent we would see, normally. And so that's a good thing. So there's going to be more, and I think the J&J hopefully will be pretty consistent going forward. So you're looking at, that's going to be over between what we're doing with pharmacies and then what we're doing with all the other avenues. That's going to be over 1 million shots, initial shots, that are going to be landing in Florida next week. So we've hit almost 75% of seniors, which was our priority, almost 3.5 million seniors. That once you get 70, 75, 80% of seniors in a given community, it really does start to drop off, just because there's some folks who are opting, maybe they've had COVID, maybe they just have other things, maybe they have reasons. We're not mandating it, of course, so you do that. So once you get in there, and I would imagine as you go down the age groups, the resistance will start at lower levels. In other words, I think under 40, you're not going to reach 75 or 80% most likely. You'll start to see resistance. But nevertheless, it's going to be there. But I do think for any of the school districts, I know you guys have had a lot of folks get it. That's great. We've obviously worked with law enforcement. Any businesses out there that are looking to do their employees, you're going to have this available. It's going to be available very likely in your neighborhood at a minimum a retail pharmacy. So starting Monday, Tuesday, when the eligibility goes down, and then this dump starts to materialize probably by next Thursday, there's going to be a lot of vaccine, not just in Florida, but around the country. So if you have folks that want it who have not been in those higher age groups up to this point, the time is very near where they're going to be able to get it, I think, with relatively little hassle. So we'll keep doing it and make sure that folks have it. But by the time we get to May, my sense is there will probably be a surplus built up. So it'll really be about public messaging and letting people know it's out there. Obviously, we will have had 4.5 months of people taking that, 5 months of people taking it. And so people will evaluate the safety based on that. When we went into the nursing homes, we were the first state in the country to do long-term care, because we had CVS, Walgreens teed up. They were starting the Monday after the initial doses came. So we said, you know what, we've got a week, let's do it. So we actually did 105 nursing homes. Pinellas and Broward were the two counties we did. So that very middle of December. And you'd go in, and most of the seniors wanted it, but some didn't. But then what would happen is they would do everybody shots. Nobody was falling over or keeling over. So then some of the residents said, you know what, I'll take it. It seems like it's good. And then when you go back for the second dose, some of the residents who opted against it the first time say, yeah, you know what, it's safe, I'll take it. So I think you'll start to see more and more folks be willing to take it as they see the track record. And I think it has worked. I think it's offered protection. I think we'll see that even more so over the next weeks. But I certainly think for elderly, I think it's been very effective. So I'd encourage folks to take it. So we will let you know when I get the jab, one way or another, and we're happy to do it. And we're really excited about today's announcement. We're really excited about these bonuses. I think it's, like I said, a lot of you guys have been doing this for how many years, right? But I don't know that you're going to make. It's really hard to find circumstances where stepping up is going to be this consequential for these kids, because if you had not done it, we would be in really difficult circumstances, and people are going to look back in 5 years. They're going to trace problems in some of these communities to kids falling off the radar, not being in school, not having the tutelage, not having the role models in school that can kind of help with their development. And I think it's going to be very unfortunate. But I think people will look to Florida and say, man, they really dodged a bullet by making sure the kids had access to the in-person education. So good on everybody, and we look forward. Maybe we'll come here when we sign the bill. We got to do somewhere in Pinellas. We started with you guys. Now we're here for this announcement, so we got to make that happen. We'll get it done. Thanks, everybody. Which way are we going? This way?